Today, I'm going to show you 5 ways to skyrocket your Instagram story views and build your audience faster going into 2022. Now, this video idea came about when my friend asked me literally that question: how do I increase my story views? And so I figured I'd make a YouTube video. If you have any video suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments or flick me a DM at Josh Ryan. So diving straight into the video, story views is all about 2 things: retention and engagement. If you can increase those 2 metrics, you can increase the amount of story views that you get, because the algorithm will see that increase and push your content out to more people. And it's pretty much that simple. Now, what I'm going to show you today is 5 things that you can do that will increase one of those 2 metrics and allow you to get there. However, there are other strategies you can implement. Just naturally think, what can I do to get people to spend more time on my Instagram story, so increase the retention? And what can I do to get people to engage more on this story, which could be replying to the story, liking the story, reacting to a story, or any form of engagement, voting on a quiz, a poll, etc. If you increase those 2 metrics, you'll increase your views. Now, the first tip that I'm going to give you is potentially one you weren't expecting, and that's to actually build up your overall engagement. So this has actually got nothing to do with stories, but will positively impact your stories. If you haven't been posting too much content in your feed recently, you might notice a drop off in story views, because when people are not engaging with your feed content, it gives Instagram less signals that they're enjoying what you post, and therefore they're less likely to push your Instagram stories to them. However, if you're posting every day in your feed and you're putting out valuable, insightful content and your audience is engaging with it, that shows Instagram these people are really interested in what you've got to say, what you're posting, and what you're all about. Which means when you go to post a story, Instagram are more likely to push that into their feed. And therefore, you're going to generate a ton more story views when you are active in your feed as well. And even better than simply being active is to work on increasing that engagement in your feed. Now, the best way to do this is just pretty much do the fundamentals really well. This is what we do for clients at my agency, where we fully manage and grow their accounts. But you pretty much want to look at when is your audience most active, post your feed content at that time to get the most engagement. Look at the topics and designs that get a lot more engagement and double down on those. And if you look at doing that for 1, 2, 3 weeks, you'll see a spike in engagement, which should follow on to an increase in story views. Now, moving on to the second tip, which is a bit more specific to stories, but that is to use story polls. And this is something that so many people, I guess a lot of people are starting to catch on to this and are starting to use them, but they're so insanely powerful that it's just unreal. The more times that you chuck story polls into your content, it gives them more ways for people to engage with your story. Remember what I said at the start? Engagement and retention. If you don't have any story polls, the only way people can engage with that story is by reacting to it or messaging. However, if you add in a story poll, there is a very easy, low commitment, no need to message anyone way for people to engage. And you can easily get hundreds of story poll responses or votes very easily. Now, a simple way to do this is to ask a question in your niche. If you're a coach, you could ask a question like, what are you struggling with most, this or this? So as an Instagram coach myself, I could say, are you struggling more with growth or monetization? And then all of a sudden, a ton of people are going to vote on that story. And not only does that give me a ton more engagement, which is going to push my story out to more people, but it'll actually help me generate leads, because I can then go look through who voted on that and respond to some of those people and have a chat. Now, another common thing that you can see people use story polls for is like would you rathers, or what do you prefer? So people might just post generic content, like it might be a vacation at the beach or a vacation in the snow. And it's like, would you prefer this or that? Or do you prefer summer or winter or nights or evenings, or all of this stuff here. Now, personally, I don't really like doing that like random off-topic stuff. I don't think it's particularly helpful. I would make sure that your polls are related to what you're creating content and related to your niche, but that's up to you. Now, the third thing you can do to boost up these story views is almost like an advanced version of story polls, and that is story quizzes. So this is where you pretty much ask your audience questions and have them try and get the answer right. Now, what you could do here, and this is especially good for anyone in the educational niche, is you can create your content in the feed, teaching people different things, and then at the end of each week, maybe you do a roundup and you have a quiz. So you might have posted 7 pieces of content for the week, and you could quiz people on those 7 topics. So maybe you posted a piece of content about what time of day it is best to post on Instagram. And that was the first post you made for the week. So the first question in your quiz could be, what time of day is it best to post on Instagram? and then people have to try and get the answer right, and maybe you do some sort of reward for people that get all 7 right, or something along those lines. And it doesn't even have to be that structured where it is just related to your 7 pieces of content. You could simply create quizzes based around your niche, based around what you post about, based around what's happening in the news. It could even be current events, but again, I prefer go a bit more niche specific than current events. So if you do want to do current events, make sure it is news related to your industry. So maybe if you're in the social media space, you can talk about Facebook changing their name, or you can talk about new features coming to Instagram, or things like that that are actually related. Now, I've even seen meme pages do this really effectively too, that might have inside jokes about what they laugh about in their industry. And so they've created stories that they will constantly run. And some of these meme pages even share insights about their admin occasionally in their content. And then so they quiz people on like how old is their dog and different things like that, which I've seen also works really well. Not only does this added engagement allow you to boost your ranking in the algorithm and get seen by more people with your stories, but it also improves the relationship you have with your audience. It potentially teaches them something, and it's going to build a true fan that's going to support you for longer, which again is going to help you in the algorithm. Now, the fourth way that you can increase your Instagram story views is a little bit different, and that is a 24-hour reset. So no stories for 24 hours and then come back with a bang. Now, the idea behind this is it sort of makes people miss you, and that they don't see your story come up. They're wondering where you are. They see your story come up. They're more likely to click on it and watch it to see what you've been up to and see what's been happening. Now, this was actually something that was proposed by the CEO of Instagram, Adam Mosseri. It was a couple months ago on one of his Q&As that he runs on his Instagram. He suggested that if you're getting low story views, to do exactly this. Let your stories expire, wait for 24 hours, come back. It somewhat resets the algorithm apparently. Now, what I would suggest doing is when you do come back with one of the above story suggestions, a poll, a quiz, something really engaging, like maybe a big result that you've achieved in your business that you want to share that people are likely to respond to, or anything along those lines, because not only will it get the benefit of being reset for 24 hours, but you will also get the benefit of people voting on that poll, that quiz, replying to your story, etc. So it's like a double boost. Now, before we get onto the fifth and final tip of this video, I just want to say that link below, you're going to find a ton of great resources. You can find the links to the tools that I use and get free trials of each and every single one. The one I use for Instagram is Flick. That'll be linked below. You can get a free trial. There's a free ebook down there when you subscribe to my newsletter. There's my course, and if you run a business and need done-for-you services for Instagram, you can also check that out too with me. And then moving on to the final tip, number 5, and that is to actually engage with your audience more. So if you give them more engagement, they're likely to give you more engagement. It's the law of reciprocity, I believe. Now, part of this just comes down to creating true fans who really support your content and support your brand in general, who are then more likely to watch your stories the whole way through, more likely to reply, more likely to vote on these polls, on these quizzes, send them to friends, and more likely to take these actions, which helps push your content further in the algorithm. Now, unless you've managed to brand and position yourself as like some mystique figure who is just everyone likes and will engage with their content and promote their brand, even if they aren't like responding to people and responding to messages and comments, etc. Unless you've been able to do that, unless you're in the 0.01% of creators who's managed to do that and come across real cool in that sense, then responding to your comments, responding to your DMs, going back and forth with your audience, having a chat with them is really going to help you in the algorithm. Because not only is that going to create more engagement, not only is that going to build your relationship with your audience, but it's also going to push you more in the algorithm. Because if someone responds to your story and you ignore it, that doesn't send much of a signal to Instagram. If someone responds to your story, you reply, they reply, you reply, they reply, you reply, they reply, and you go back and forth and have a conversation, that signals to Instagram that you've got quite a strong connection with this person. And one of the main things that Instagram look for in the stories algorithm, which they recently talked about, is they look for the connection between you and the person who has posted the story and less at the content itself. So for your content to rank on the explore page, for example, is pretty much all about the content. It's not so much about the relationship between the two people. That is important, but not as important. The content is the main thing. Stories, on the other hand, is all about the relationship you have with the person who has posted it and less about the content. So if you improve that relationship with your followers, you respond to their messages, you talk with them, you respond to their comments, and you build up that back and forth interaction with them, you're going to rank much higher in their feed. And that is going to help you get a lot more story views. It'll help you get more views in the feed and so on as well. Not to the same degree, because stories is more about that, but still will help massively. And that there is 5 things you can do to increase your Instagram story views and build your audience in 2021 going into 2022. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.